Thank you, everyone, for attending the first of what we hope will be many events hosted by the RISD Founders and Entrepreneurs Affinity Group. The purpose of the Founders and Entrepreneurs Affinity Group was to start to bond and help the RISD entrepreneurial community to learn and support and grow together. So I want to thank the RISD Alumni Office for helping to organize this. Chris and Tway have done a fantastic job, so thanks to them. Today, we are going to be talking to the founders of RBW, Charles Brill, Theo Richardson, and Alex Williams. I am John Chidiac, illustration 94, and I have been helping to get the RISD Founders and Entrepreneurs Affinity Group off the ground. I'm also a founder and entrepreneur myself, currently as CEO of a HR tech company, Blue Space. We're based out in New York. Enough about me, because we're really here today to talk to Alex, Charles, and Theo. So it's my great pleasure to introduce you guys. I understand you guys change around your roles from time to time, so why don't you just each take a turn and introduce yourself to the group today. Alex, you can start us off.
Great. Okay. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thanks to RISD. I'm getting also a little bit of an echo here, but I'll just ignore it. My name's Alex Williams. I'm Furniture 06, and at RBW, I focus on sales and customer relationships.
All right.
Go for it, Theo.
Okay. My name's Theo Richardson. I'm Furniture 06, and I in the role of Director of Development. I lead some of our product efforts and have been working in the intersection between product and operations.
Awesome. All right, Charles.
My name is Charles Brill, and I'm also Furniture 06, and I'm currently acting as the managing partner of RBW Studio LLC.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. And so we're going to, I've got some questions for you guys. Hopefully we can enlighten our audience. And if there's time, we'll be able to take some questions from the attendees. So hold your questions, people. And if there's time, we'll ask you to pop them into the chat, and we'll see what we can get these guys to tell us. So let's start off. Can you guys tell us about RBW? Charles.
Sure, I can start out. RBW is a lighting and design and lighting manufacturer based in Brooklyn, New York. We were founded in 2008, and we design and manufacture lighting products for hospitality and workplace environments. We did not start our organization out like that 11 years ago, but we have an operation of approximately 45 full-time team members based globally now, all over the world. So we come up with ideas for new product ideas, and we're focusing exclusively on lighting products. But we design, engineer, manufacture, and distribute with our sales force, primarily in the United States and also in other sectors of the world, mainly Europe and Australia. And we believe in the power that light creates atmosphere. It sets the mood and the tone for a room. It could be at home, a hotel, or a workplace. It can change, to a very active, live atmosphere, or it can also be something that makes the environment very calm and maybe intimate. And it's our objective to create the best performance and design luminaires for those types of environments.
Great, thank you. How did you guys are all know each other from your furniture design program, but how did you end up working together?
Sure, so I'll take that one. We all found ourselves living in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. We'd all sort of gone our separate ways after graduating, with no specific intent to work together. And I think Theo and I actually wound up crashing on Charles' sofa for a couple of weeks, and he was already a little more established in the city and in a design and architecture career. And we had always been close at school, enjoyed the kind of creative dialogue that we had between the three of us. And we were all trying to, have day jobs, but also do creative stuff on the side. And I think we saw it as kind of a three heads are better than one approach, trying to make it in a tough new environment, not as tough as RISD, but right up there, New York City. And so we just began kind of sharing resources. One of us would get a freelance project, maybe doing some design work or building a piece of furniture, and we'd all kind of chip in and help out. We started renting a little studio space together in the basement of a tenement building in the East Village. I think we split the $300 a month rent, or we'd take turns paying it. And that really became the place where we spent evenings and weekends together. And that sort of environment that we created really became the spark of what later, started to become RBW.
Could I add a little bit to the tail end of that, John?
Yeah.
So it was also during the 2008 financial crash. So we were doing this kind of casually on the side, but Theo and I both lost our jobs, I think within a day or two of one another. And it reminds me similar to maybe what's occurring now with the global pandemic. And if I were to offer some bit of silver lining, is that if it wasn't because two out of the three of us lost our jobs, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today. So I would just say, for those individuals that maybe did not choose to maybe be unemployed at this time, or what I might call a professional pause, you can really take this opportunity and consider, maybe from what we talked about today, and inspire you to maybe be in a much better position 10 years from now than you ever could have been if said employment remained.
That's a great point. Yep. Thank you, Charles. So I think, you guys started out as furniture. You were doing work together, and collaborating. Tell us about your journey to becoming a lighting company.
Sure. So we began with trade shows as a way to showcase a group of products that we thought would be sort of prototypes for other manufacturers. The intent originally was to become a design studio, and we had sort of a quick realization that the math didn't really support that at that time, that the relative proportion of like what we would earn in a royalty check versus, if we'll say it's 5% versus the 50% in a 2-time markup business, just wasn't there. It didn't really compute. When we thought, hey, these are the people who can potentially make product for us. Are they 10 times bigger than what we are, that 5 to 50%? So the rough math, we realized like it could suggest that we should just continue to do things on our own. So to go from presenting prototypes to entice people is actually not so different from, okay, well, let's take this to the next step and begin manufacturing. And so from there, while we began with furniture degrees, I think the focus of the RISD education is pretty holistic and a creative process. And we also saw some opportunities around this transition to light emitting diodes, and we thought that we were at least I won't say well positioned, but at least like nimble enough to respond and could start demonstrating LED lighting products alongside furniture. And what we soon realized as well was that through the help of some mentorship was that we should just consider how people imagine RBW when they hear that name, and what are we really known for. And it was sort of like this moment of, do we continue doing two things and perhaps confusing or muddling what we're really about, or should we just focus? And we is a little bit a couple of years down the line where we had sales of both types of products, and we realized there's an argument to be made that even though this would incur some short-term loss or of revenue, that really the focus would be much better for a brand. So we and since then I think we've just been continuing to evolve in this, like finding more maturity as a brand that manufactures lighting, designs, manufactures, and sells lighting.
Awesome. So Theo, just because you touched on this a little bit in your last answer there. So what about your RISD experience helped you in your entrepreneurial journey, kind of figuring things out and moving forward?
Well, so in a lot of ways, RISD prepared us with this intuitive process, this creative process of responding to something that you have made. And I think what we have learned to do is just sort of augment that education or that creative process with additional business tools, from whether they be from programming, like the idea of A/B testing, in some ways that's already what inherent in painting, sculpture, drawing, furniture, sculpture, whatever it is that we're having to be working on. But I think like more explicitly demonstrating, here's multiple versions of something that I could make, and responding to those choices. I think we've augmented it with the business model ideas that, and I think we may get to this again in the conversation, but I think the idea was just that the RISD education was great at helping develop a creative working method. Each one, I think, every graduate, I think, it winds up with their own individual process. But that when it comes to building a business or being an entrepreneur, not everything needs to be created from scratch. It doesn't need to be. It will inevitably be unique to you, but it may not need to be. It certainly can be a creative thing, but it can also be looking to examples of business literature or existing business models and taking the parts that you like and saying, like, here are building blocks of a system, and adopting those. So
yeah,
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Charles, Alex, anything you want to add on this one? From your own personal experience.
Go for it, Alex.
Yeah. In terms of things we took away from from our RISD experience, well, I think a big one for me is just the confidence to really pursue an idea, and to really kind of take a risk and put yourself out there. After you've been through enough public crit type situations where ideas are being challenged and just kind of torn apart, I think you just kind of develop a comfort level with that whole process. which has served me well.
To follow up on that as well, I think there was a business example just yesterday where I was invited to provide feedback to another, product, and I think the distance. One of the things that I think the critique process that we learned through RISD is intended to do is give you a distance to step back and see your own ideas through and the execution of those ideas through the lens of others, and how you can begin to absorb that that distance so that you can find self-critical reflection as a way to advance whatever it is that you are doing. And so I think that's a really that critical thinking process, or the distance between what you've made and what you can make, is really important and can be widely applied to ideas or things that are not necessarily visual.
I can't follow that one up, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, great. So, if for the audience members, people watching here today, or on the recording, in terms of if you having an idea, right, for a business, any tips that you guys can share on how to move forward with it, how to start to first steps to bring it into the world.
I'll chime in on that one, and if Theo and Alex, you want to add on a little bit. A couple kind of methods that we use a lot, even in our current process, is a lean manufacturing method of kind of developing products, and it's called fail cheap, fail fast. And the idea behind that is that doing multiple iterations quickly and figuring out what's successful and maybe what fails will allow you to get to an end result quicker, versus, if you're creating a business or a product idea, if you invest, a year of time and all of your life savings and then try to sell the first one, you've already invested too much time and money, and the risk level is just maybe too much. The kind of eggs in one basket kind of analogy would be very specific, but the concept of iterative ideas, or maybe even multiple directions concurrently or sequentially, to allow you to find what works and what doesn't, and specifically looking at how a market will respond to a product or a material or an idea is very, very important, because conceptually you can, I guess, envision the greener pastures of, your Shopify carts, or, coming in orders every minute or every day. But you just have to try it out and put it out there and see whether or not people understand it and are intrigued by it and want to maybe take a risk in investing either their money or their clients' money in one of your products or services. Another thing that comes to mind is the I'll probably butcher it, but it's the concept of ballpark math. So it's really, really important. Like Theo mentioned, that idea of like looking at royalty percentage versus selling a product, like what your margins are. And the analogy of ballpark math is, let's say you want to go out and be a hot dog vendor at a major league ballpark stadium. Well, you can very, very quickly on one sheet of paper understand maybe what the cost of your materials might be and what the going rate for a hot dog could sell for. And then you back it into, there's, maybe I'm just gonna conceptually say there's 100 games in a year, and the average attendance is 1,000 people, and of that you can confidently say, I don't know, 1 out of 10 people might buy a hot dog. And very, very quickly you can basically figure out, well, is that business of a scale that is, I guess, valid for me to pursue the idea. And that exercise is very, very important to determine whether or not you want to be a hot dog vendor.
And yeah, to go off that too, potentially working back if you're just getting started from like, what do I need to, what's my annual or what's my monthly cost? Okay, so ballpark math will tell you top down, and then sort of like, what do I need to make? And then in a month, whatever it may be, can tell you if those are where you need to move things. So you need to pick up a few more ball games, a few more customers, whatever it is, to make that monthly
Or sell
cost.
beer as well.
All right.
It's not a good time for hot dog sales right now, I can tell you that.
Well, and I was gonna on top of that, I was gonna say that we had the benefit of while we were in the 2008, 2009 recession when we began, we did have the benefit of this in-person interaction over the sort of trade show booth. Those first presentations of product did more than just say, like, do I want to buy it? Yes, no, sort of true, false. It was more like, well, let me tell you about what I'm looking for, or here's what, does it do this? Does it do that? And engaging in the dialogue is a greater level of like value and data that that we were at least able to capture when we were meeting people in person. So, but of course there's Zoom and everything else. So
I have one more thing to add on, if that's all right, if we have time here.
Go for it.
And the piece of advice would be to figure out your why statement. So you can probably tell people what you're doing, you can tell them how you're doing it, but you really need to be able to articulate why deep down, you believe. What's your emotional sort of reason for pursuing this idea? And that's ultimately how you're going to be able to get other people behind it and connect with customers or whoever else that might be that you're speaking with.
Yeah, like the Simon Sinek, how great leaders inspire action, the great TED Talk. And I think, Alex, that's right around the time that we were making this transition of whether or not we should continue with a furniture model or whether we should explore lighting. And we spent a couple of days on why we need to exist. And from that, I mean, another, I don't know, 8 years ago that was, maybe, have flowed fairly focused on this concept.
Is Simon Sinek on your reading list, Theo?
I think it's no, I don't think so.
On that list.
Not on the list.
Yeah,
Gotta add it with TED Talks and videos. Yeah.
You can create a whole library
of TED Talks.
TED Talks and required reading for all entrepreneurs. So yeah, we're going to thank you, Theo, for reminding me. So Alex, Theo, and Charles all they had I want to call it a book club, and a pretty robust list of reading that kind of addresses a lot of questions, and that anybody who's thinking about starting a business or running a business really should understand from at different stages of the business and different aspects of it. So really good stuff, and we're going to share that after this.
Hey, John, I know we're asking people to save questions to the end. There is a question in the Q&A here that maybe we could field now as we're talking about the sort of the journey of the company. I don't know if you want to read that one, but
yeah, let me pull it up. So a question from Alex, another Alex, Alex Jew. So can you speak more about your manufacturing journey from those early products to your operations today? How did thinking for larger scale manufacturing influence your design process given the typical one-off focus at RISD? It's a great question. So who would, Alex, did you want to take that one?
I can add something
Yeah.
first if you wanted to think about your response. Well, I would say that the scale of making, while maybe in fabrication method is unique, the importance of understanding how to make something, I think, is more important. And I would say that it's a strong area from a RISD curriculum. So I would just say, with the confidence of understanding how to make something, you can begin to then evolve the idea into other manufacturing methods for efficiency or cost reasons. And I believe that through simple evolution of design, thinking about something very straightforward with fewer components, or maybe that have maybe more complex features, you're able to adapt the design over time. And an example of that might be our monocle sconce, which is something that we originally, I believe, ordered about 50 pieces worth of assemblies, and wanted to kind of see what the market thought of. And over time, we've sold thousands of them a year now. And with that motivation of the customer willing to purchase larger quantities, we then take time to consider, how can this be more efficient? And we've evolved it from machine aluminum to cast aluminum. We've had to modify some of the finishes because cast aluminum doesn't like to be anodized. But it's that evolution of the idea, but knowing how to make it in the first place and designing it from a point of view that it can be made, I think, is not necessarily a given from an industrial design or furniture background. I think that's maybe one area that, in a computer, you can create anything, but does it have the right draft angles for the mold release and all these other elements that really make it a successful product at any scale? So I probably didn't answer your question, but I tried to the best of my ability.
Alex, did you want to say something there?
No, well, if we wanted to spend more time on that topic, Theo, you could. I mean, we've been having lots of really interesting conversations recently about kind of what the next phase is for us as a manufacturing business.
Yeah. Well, I think I think of the response in sort of two parts. Like, one part is like, definitely it's a journey, and you evolve and you learn and you grow as you go. And then the other part is sort of also like, well, you're probably not going to be the expert on it. At the end of the day, you might begin to need to rely on the expertise of others. So, but just being able to identify like when you kind of go as far as you can, and then what kind of help do you need from there is sort of a constantly shifting boundary, because your own scope continues to increase, and then you realize, that more sophisticated approaches are increasingly applicable. So we've just grown a lot from basically more or less straight out of RISD without any entrepreneurial experience, but a 10-year period is a very long time, or 10 plus years. And so you will pick it up with sufficient time and ambition. Yeah.
So this kind of goes into another question that we had. It was just like, some of those, the tough lessons that you guys had to learn along the way. I think, Alex, you had some thoughts on this.
Sure, I can start with a few. Yeah. Well, I think one lesson has just been how difficult the sort of people component of running a business always is, and so ultimately you have to get people, as I was kind of saying earlier, behind, invested in what you're trying to do. And if everything kind of lives in your own head and you're doing things for sort of, mysterious reasons, or reasons that are mysterious to other people, they'll show up to work in the morning maybe for a while, but then, how do you really keep people engaged and feeling like they're contributing to something bigger every day when they come into work, and how to develop a strategy that you can align with, the skill set that your team has to offer. Do you have the right people on the team, and how are you working to help them grow and achieve their goals? So I think a lot of the lessons that we've learned have been sort of people related, as we've figured out along the way how to be more or less effective leaders and managers. I think another lesson has just been, and this was already brought up, the importance of focusing on something, and really making it clear to other people, what it is that you do and why you're doing it, and just being able to take ground, on your ambitions, which if they're too spread out, and broad reaching, then you'll just never, you'll have a very hard time being successful. Well, and an example of that, when we weren't just a lighting company, we were, hey, we were offering a line of furniture, we were maybe doing a little packaging design here and there, like really kind of
massage therapy.
That one didn't last very long. So we've early on had, and sometimes still have, this sort of fake it till you make it mentality. And one of the products that we kind of put out there was a chair, which really existed only as a rendering, a pretty convincing rendering, let's say. And we actually, were able to sell quite a number of these chairs to a pretty high profile technology company for their new headquarters. And so we sort of had to scramble to figure out how to make them. Of course, we're working on lots of other types of projects as well. So nobody really had the time to focus on sort of the engineering of what was now going to be a commercial grade piece of furniture. And so, sure enough, about 4 months maybe after they were installed in this space in California, we started getting frantic phone calls saying that the chairs were more or less exploding when people were leaning back in them. And Charles actually had to fly out there. This was some years ago. Charles actually had to fly out there and spend some time in a warehouse sort of bolting extra parts onto this chair. But anyway, it was shortly after that we really realized that focusing on being good at one thing was the right direction.
Yeah.
But I also think that in light of the failure of the product, we continue to find ways to support the customer, to do our best. And we parted with, it was maybe not our most profitable project, but I don't think we're still here today. And so that some failure along the way is inevitable and to be expected, and you just work through or work around or work, but basically you don't really stop.
Did we get to Mr. Grant's question? I was going to add something to that about how you stay focused on discipline as your own boss.
Yeah, we can ask and it's a great question. And so I'll read the question.
Okay.
And I'm going to add on to it because I think there's right. So Will Gant has asked, how do you stay focused and disciplined as your own boss? And I would add on to that, how do you guys, work together, and stay productive, help keep each other focused and productive?
Sure. What inspired me about that question was thinking about the time when we were formulating our organization. And I'll probably not say this correctly, but there's like 3 or more stages to an organization or an entity. It's forming, storming, and norming. So the idea is that you're evolving your business and the ideas, and then you're kind of going ahead with it, and then you're kind of normalizing it. But to think of the time that we were just 3 people in a room trying to hold each other accountable for showing up every day. Beyond that, I think the basic concept of writing down your goals or objectives is very, very important. I know it might sound silly, even if you're alone in a room right now trying to develop your own idea. If you don't write something down, it really will be very difficult to hold yourself accountable for it. And the tool of a SMART goal, the specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound, putting down your objectives in that lens provides you the opportunity to establish realistic expectations over a period of time, so you can really celebrate, even if it's just you, on the successes and perhaps opportunities for improvement if you look back after those particular time frame or milestones. So I would really encourage just writing things down so they can happen.
Great. We're actually getting a lot of really great questions in the chat, and but there are a couple other questions I definitely want to get to. So keep the questions coming. Is there, what did you wish, right? If you could go back, right, and be yourselves, 11 or so years ago, wish you, something that you wish that you figured out along the way, that wish someone had told you back then when you were starting out, or something that you wish you had known then, what you know now, that could help our people who are thinking about getting into business.
Yeah, then I think I mentioned this earlier, or touched upon it, but the idea is that if you are feeling perhaps like timid about committing to this idea of like becoming an entrepreneur, committing to your own idea, I wish that I had known earlier, or someone had inspired more sense of like that time. 10 years is a very long time, and that it does not happen overnight, and that you don't need to be as apprehensive about being the expert today. If you have the ambition to do it, and you recognize that you are willing to make a commitment and willing to see progress over time, then it can be done. Like, I don't think we began 10 years ago with the idea that we would be here now. But to Charles' point earlier, that like we did say like this is where we would like to be in a certain period of time, and we did set up specific milestones to help guide us. And that's actually, in terms of what helps us show up to work, or the discipline of being your own boss, to that question, we 2.5 years ago we set, or 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we set a 3-year goal, a target, which we call our North Star. And we are constantly, every 4 months as an organization, we're revisiting the North Star and how we are taking ground on it. But we set up this cycle, and maybe Charles, you can speak to it a little more, but the objective key results cycle, where we define the objective and then identify what are the signposts of success along the way to achieving it.
Yeah, and sorry, just before Charles, you jumped into that. So you guys, Theo just mentioned a couple of really good frameworks that that are widely in use now, or or becoming more in use, as for companies to give themselves some accountability, give their teams accountability to kind of lift themselves up and move forward. One, the North Star metric, right, which is really trying to. It's about focus, and it's about knowing your market, or what the market that you want to kind of serve. What is it? What is that one thing that we're going to measure our success on? And then the OKRs. I can't that too much for me to go into now, but there's a ton of stuff out there on it, and really worthwhile looking into. But yeah, Charles, go ahead.
Well, it was about 1.5 years ago, with the North Star, when we first started to be the #1 preferred decorative lighting brand for hospitality and workplace environments in the United States. We wanted to figure out how we can take ground on that long-term 3-year objective, and how do we make sure that there's the milestones along the way to kind of gauge how we're doing. And we adopted the planning tool for teams called Objectives and Key Results, and it basically allows organizations to work collaboratively in the same direction. I mean, very, very early on, you'll identify that as the group gets larger, it's really difficult to herd cats, so to speak, in terms of like getting them to all go to one direction, and to achieve a North Star objective, which is a long-term plan. It's very important to make sure that there's a unified thought process, and chipping away at it, weekly, monthly, quarterly tasks will allow you to get there.
John, I like the term of frameworks, because I think, like as designers, we work within the idea of constraints, but in this case, like the constraints are not maybe like on the what you're making, but how you're making it, constraints in the process. And by accepting those constraints or identifying them and making them clear is a very effective method for management.
Yeah, there are these frameworks and templates that are I would say you cannot underestimate the power of, because there have been plenty of very smart people that have come before us that have figured this stuff out, and we would be, we don't have to figure everything out ourselves from scratch, right? A lot of that stuff we do, being creative people, we try to, we're gonna be innovative, but at the end of the day, when you want to bring something into the world, you want to scale it, you need to be able to find the right tools to help you do that. And so these, yeah, great point. So I want to get to the questions, but I don't want us to leave without hearing about RBW recently got a B Corp certification, and so Charles, can you tell us about that?
Sure. It was actually, we first found out about B Corp very early on in the development of RBW through a friend who's also a RISD alum that has a company that makes animal leashes and products, and they also help support animal charities and organizations for homeless animals, I guess you'd want to call them. But B Corp is a certification. It's a nonprofit organization based in the United States. There's about 2,000 to 3,000 businesses globally that are measured against various criteria to be eligible to have the designation. But it's kind of a self-reflection, kind of evaluation of your governance, how your organization is structured, how you treat your customers and vendors, how you consider the environment in your business practices. And through creating our own business, it's really the business model itself, or how we interact with our customers and our vendors and our team members is its own design challenge. And the B Corp certification allowed us to really measure a lot of things that we were doing kind of maybe more instinctually on our own to a standard that would have the ability to kind of celebrate a lot of the activities that our organization had been started. Or in this time, it's really also encouraging us to do better, because we have certain like a public rating. You go to the bottom of our website, the B Corp link goes to the profile, and you can kind of see where we stand amongst the average of B Corp members. But as you begin to measure, where you stand, it encourages us to think how we can improve on that metric, and improve how we can use the power of business for a positive change.
Awesome. Well, impressive achievement there, and yeah, it's important. And an important certification. Obviously, the organization is doing a lot of important work. So I'm looking for look for companies out there who are other companies who are doing that.
So just to tack in on that one, some of the other well-known names are like Ben and Jerry's, Patagonia, Athleta, and Eileen Fisher, a RISD alum in the apparel fashion space.
Exxon Mobil, Shell Gas, no.
Right. Well, that is. I had some more questions, but I want to get to some of the questions that have come in from. Jessica Ning is. She's got asked a few questions here. What's the size of your company? How do you balance your time and energy among creating, branding, team management, operations, marketing, etc.? Who wants to take that?
I can start off. I assume size of the company refers to employees. So we're around 45 or so. It's down a little bit from pre-COVID levels. And of that team, about I'd say about a third of that team is working in our facility in Brooklyn, on product assembly and other operations roles. Everyone else is remotely located now. In terms of balancing time and energy, at this phase of our company, we have each of these represents a business unit. So as we've grown, and each of the three of us has grown from sort of both leading and being the entire business unit for one of these areas, we've been able to grow teams and competencies within the company that can focus on each of these. And then when we do things like review our North Star every couple months, and plan goals and business objectives, then each of these business units, takes a look at how it's going to, support that North Star through the work that it's doing. So, each of these is kind of a leg that's needed to, to hold up the table or the stool.
Cool. All right, great. Thanks. So this is looks like a bit more of a technical question. So George Coffin, you mentioned ordering 50 assemblies as a baseline order to test an idea. Do you ever take pre-orders for new products using renders before committing to an order quantity like that, or are you just taking a leap of faith?
That's a great question, and we began our business before, well, actually, before Kickstarter was widely accepted as a solution for doing this. I think Kickstarter is a phenomenal platform, and I think it's a great way to preload to pre-fund the manufacturing production. It wasn't really available to us, so we never really used that method of. We have not used that concept. We take a leap of faith, and as far as we use the past business history and past sales data and sort of like past combination of accumulated experience and data in combination with like a market surveys and other things, looking at where competitors' products are to help us position new product introductions. So leap of faith, sort of. I mean, it's calculated, a calculated leap, but that's, I think, more just how we've evolved, and that's might have been different if we had been based more in the Kickstarter model. You see a lot of brands that are pretty large consumer brands right now. I think of like the Peak Design, Camera Goods, and other things like that that launch new products to like instant $1 million or sales figures, so, or multi-million. So yeah, depends on, and another thing is just that we're primarily like a business to business focused B2B, in that we sell to architects and interior designers, usually representing larger companies and more often than not either hotel environments but our primary business has been, for the last decade, has been workspaces. And as far as like the quantity of 50, I mean, if you can do quantity of one, do quantity of one and get feedback. It's sort of arbitrary, I would say.
Yeah. I think, and I want to, just briefly ask this one because it came up before earlier, and you just mentioned it again. So being out there with your potential customers, right? You mentioned the trade shows, but being able to reach out and have conversations, get feedback from the market is super important. How, what have you guys done apart from the stuff that you already mentioned to how do you tackle that problem of making sure that what you're manufacturing, what you're bringing to market is the stuff that people are going to want to buy?
I can chime in on that one a little bit. We used to do this a lot. We still do some of it, but asking people's advice. If you show someone interest in wanting to hear what they have to say, I'm sure they would gladly respond. But it's just the purpose. You just need to ask them at the beginning. And some of our early products, we would have very notable, successful, career designers and architects, and we'd say, hey, what do you need in the market? What are you looking for? Like, come over for a Zoom call and have a chat. And that inspired a lot of ideas about, oh, we should have this sconce that has this feature that does this special thing. You can plug in your phone or something. So it goes for inspiring product ideas, but also if you're looking to get in a different industry. If you were to email me saying, hey, I'd love an informational interview about the lighting business, I would hope that others would also be open to having a 15-20 minute call to just share a little bit about the experience. But I don't get those emails very often, or at least they don't come into my inbox. But just asking people for advice is maybe enough to butter them up to carve out some time to share some perspective from where they are coming from.
I think in the realm of product design, it's often said, especially in the era of Apple, it's not necessarily about like giving people what they are asking for, I think they need, but, you know, showing them what they never knew that they needed, or if it's said more eloquently than that. But I think one really cool thing about working with architects and designers as our sort of customers and audience is that they're already, you know, designing for the future, thinking about what the need, you know, will be a year from now, 10 years from now. And so to be able to have them, you know, sort of helping us see what that future might look like, and what, you know, how it might be lit, you know, is always an incredible source of product inspiration for us.
Actually, Alex, you made me. I got this other question. So, what do you know? You guys, it seems like you guys. I don't know if it was intentional or if it's or happenstance that you ended up, you know, working for other designers and architects. What would you say? First of all, was there any intention around that, and any thoughts on choosing your customer? You know, who do you want to work for? Who do you want to sell to? Is there choose your market? Who do you want to be working with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I think, well, just by the sort of nature of the last 10 years in terms of how you know, technology companies have advanced and the economy has sort of become digital, you know, our clients kind of wound up gravitating to our projects, wound up gravitating towards these spaces, you know, headquarters, innovation offices, like sort of, you know, the places where this technology was being created. And there's just been so much growth in that industry, and the sort of need is to create these spaces where, you know, the most talented people are going to want to come and work and spend time. And I think so that's been an exciting space to work in. And some of that, of course, is now shifting because of what's going on, but it sort of creates this whole new set of briefs or questions about what will the future of work be, and you know, and what will the need be there. So that's just sort of been a path that we've followed. But of course, you know, we work with a range of clients, from private residences to hotels to you know, educational, institutional spaces. So I think we're super lucky to have access to a pretty diverse customer base, and that keeps us thinking about lots of different types of problems.
All right. Well, I think we are out of time. Thank you guys so much for being with us today, and for sharing all the lessons learned and the insights, and helping us get to know more about you guys, your journey, and RBW. And so with that, I will sign off, and you'll hear from the alumni office about I guess the recording on this, and Theo's reading list, and a whole bunch more stuff coming real soon. So thank you everyone for joining us, and hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.